Today is February 16th, 2023, and this is Conversations from Stritch. I'm Dave Livingston, president of Lewis University, and I'm joined by our provost, Christopher Sint. I did want to start today with just recognizing and acknowledging some of the real tragedies that we have dealt with over the last week. I want to say to all of our alumni friends and all of the people at Michigan State that we are thinking of you, dealing with the tragedy there, the loss of life there, and the way in which it really shakes up a community, and know that you're in our prayers. Also wanted to, this is an event that has happened a couple weeks ago, but I still am amazed by the number of people that have been lost in the earthquake that devastated Turkey and Syria. Over 40,000 people have died, but so many more who have lost their housing, who have lost loved ones, or whose jobs and economic life have been totally undermined because of this tragedy. I also wanted to say just quickly that we did have our Board of Trustees meeting this last Monday. It was a really good meeting. We'll talk more as the year goes on about some of the things that came out of it, but we did approve our capital expenditure budget for next year, which will allow us to do many projects around campus. Again, we'll talk more about that in coming shows, because we'll highlight some of the people that are going to be impacted by that and some of the areas of campus that will be impacted by that. But also we approved a program, an undergraduate program in communication disorders. We've talked in the past with speech-language pathology professor Tina Veal, who's been on this. She was a big person, along with Dean Muller, who helped Chris and his team to put forward something. And I just want to say how proud I am of our campus to continually listen to what society wants in terms of new academic programs. We do all the background work and then are able to bring forth things like communication disorders, which I think will serve students moving forward in a really positive way. And so we're excited about that. Lots of other things happened at that meeting. But it's always good when we have an opportunity to meet with the trustees and tell them about all the great work that our employees and our students are doing. And of course, we had some people that were able to join them for dinner afterwards, and they love talking to our students and our employees and hearing about our mission. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Chris. I know we have a lot of events going on campus.
Yeah, hello everyone, great to be with you. And I'm just reflecting a little bit about some of the things that you just mentioned. That was a wonderful dinner with our board members. So many members of our faculty and students were present with them, and it's always just so enjoyable to watch our students and faculty interact with members of the board, and their board is so interested in I'm always really impressed with our members of our community and the way they speak to the Lewis experience here. Also, I wanted to mention, related to Michigan State, that our Chief of Police, Mike Zagadlo, sent out an email a couple days ago regarding providing resources for people to find out more about how Lewis maintains safety and mitigates against any potential incidents on our campus. And I know that Chief Zagadlo is really available to talk with individual departments or colleges or other parts of our community if there's more interest in more information about that. And we regularly report on those at things like convocation afternoons and other events, but we really see the need for continued sharing of our approach to campus violence and support for people who are impacted by it, both in terms of direct impact to connections of friends or colleagues and in a place not too far from here, and in just the way it makes you feel about being on a college campus. And then related to Turkey and Syria, I just wanted to express gratitude to Dr. Lily Burciaga, assistant professor for the Lewis University counseling psychology department and clinical mental health counseling program, who recently discussed how universities have a crucial role in promoting healing for those impacted by the recent earthquakes in those countries. Professor Burciaga also serves as the International Association for Resilience and Trauma Counseling Membership Committee Chair and Counselors for Social Justice Membership Committee Chair. And she was cited in Universities Worldwide, in a story called Universities Worldwide Offer Support for Quake Response on University World News. So we really appreciate members of our faculty getting right into these really important international situations that are going on and helping in the response. Reminder that the Sun Serpent continues this weekend at the Philip Lynch Theater. I'm going tonight. Can't wait.
Great show.
This play, written by Jose Cruz Gonzalez, is an historical and poetic story about the hope and struggles to find the courage to persist against all odds while portraying the strength of the human spirit. Performances run from tonight through Sunday at night and in matinees on Saturday and Sunday. So please try to get tickets if you haven't seen it yet and come out and watch our students in action. The art show, Beyond Representation, Seeking New Forms, continues at Lewis's Brent and Jean Wadsworth Gallery through March 16th. The show features new forms of abstract expression that artists Ben Dallas, Sally Havlis, Burley Cronquist, and Jenny Roberts have developed. And as always, the gallery is open 9 to 9 and is free and open to the public. The reception for this show will be on February 23rd from 7 to 9. I look forward to that. And then, as we've mentioned the last few shows, it's coming up on the deadline now. February 28th is the deadline for students to apply for the Dream.USA scholarship at Lewis. The full tuition scholarship is for academically qualified and highly motivated high school or community college students who meet current immigration eligibility criteria, including DACA or TPS status. Lewis University is a partner college of the Dream.US, the nation's largest college access and success program for dreamers. This partnership provides scholarships to qualified immigrant students who came to this country as young children or as dreamers. For a complete listing of eligibility requirements, visit the Dream.US to submit an application before that due date of February 28th, which is now just a little bit less than 2 weeks away. So we have a lot going on campus, as always. Feel like I'm trying to go to 3 different events tonight and this afternoon. So we're gonna turn it over to you.
A couple things, and like you, I'd love to comment on a couple things you said. So one, I did go to the play. Joan and I and had a friend. We went over to Lockport and had dinner, and then went to the play, and it was really nice last Friday night. Really well acted in. Of course, we had the director and Eduardo's, who plays multiple roles in the cast here last night. They do a great job. So I just invite all of you to take the time to go out and see the play before it runs out. It's a really well done show. So please do that. Also wanted to just comment on the Dream US. I was in DC. You and I were both in DC, but stuck around and did some lobbying. And Senator Durbin in Illinois is one of the lead people on trying to get some change in legislation around DACA status students and get the DREAM Act passed. And he was again. I guess I just want to say we advocate on the part of our students who are dreamers, and we have people in the state of Illinois who are really focused on this as an issue. So really glad you mentioned it. We will continue to do our part. And hope that at some point it'll be much easier for students in that situation. So a couple events I'm going to run through, and some of this will be up on your screen. So we have a lot of events that are coming up. We have multiple lectures. So Dr. Lauren O'Connor's talking about Robin, the character from Batman and Robin, and the making of American adolescence. We also have Colonel Alan Gladowski, who's going to be, was in NASA and was an astronaut and is going to be coming and speaking to our students. So there's a lot of stuff around, I guess what I'd call academic related stuff, opportunities for you to learn a lot more. Also a graduate education forum that's happening at 5 to 6 virtually tonight. And then I also wanted to just say that there's a lot of athletics. As Chris said, we could go to 7 events, it feels like, every night. But we have men's and women's basketball that is happening tonight, so we're excited about that. We also will have men's and women's basketball this weekend against Rockhurst. Men's lacrosse, hopefully the snow will melt by then, is hosting Roberts Wesleyan on campus on the 19th. So just a lot of really good things. Men's volleyball, watched them win last night, and they will be playing Lindenwood tomorrow night. I did want to say, and this is always necessary, but when we think about earthquakes, but there's so much other need for this, there's a blood drive that's happening on campus on the 22nd. So please, go to the Arts and Science Building, 104C, between 8 and 3 on the 22nd. Give some blood. It's a really easy way to do it. There's always a need for blood because there's always something that's going on or somebody that needs it. We also have some travel sports that are going on. So men's and women's track will compete at the Lee Slick Invite in Naperville. Men's and women's swimming at University of Chicago this coming weekend, and then tennis travels to Grand Valley State. I guess I feel like I have to say this every week, Chris, but there's so much activity going on campus. And because of all these people that are behind this wall and other things, we have all sorts of activities that are also streamed live. So if you can't get to campus, you can often take advantage of a lecture or an event that's happening and watch it live streamed. We have an amazing community of people that are doing, and you're going to introduce our guest, but our guest is going to talk about another opportunity that you have to learn in a different way, right? In a different context. So who's our guest today?
I have a couple other things to say before we get to our guest, we're really excited about. But I just have to tell a little story related to what you just said, which is I feel like this was scripted in my life or something, but I was in Charlie's Place walking through, I think it was Thursday last week or Friday, it was Monday actually. It was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I just walked past two students who were standing there near the door of the opening to go into Charlie's Place, and this student woman said, I have to go to chess club, and then I have to go to my study group, and then I have to go to the basketball game, to her friend. I was just like, this is what we want. This is such a dream.
It is.
That I heard that, because that's the environment that we're trying to create, where there's so many amazing things that it's, you have to choose between fun activities on campus. I also want to mention, just as a reminder, that you can email a question to us or our guest at askus@lewisu.edu. If you're watching live, we will get the question into the conversation that we're having. If you are watching on YouTube, please also feel free to ask, and we can send the question to Dr. Kerth, who I'm about to introduce, and he can respond via email or in some other form. So please take advantage of that, askus@lewisu.edu. And finally, now I'm really happy to introduce our guest, Dr. Scott Kerth, who joined Lewis in 2015 and is now an associate professor in the Organizational Leadership Department. Before Lewis, he worked in healthcare at Northwestern Memorial Hospital and lived in Europe and in Asia for more than 15 years, working in technology, startups, and venture capital. He teaches a range of classes: leadership theory, ethics, psychology of motivation, fundamentals of business enterprise, and finance for non-financial managers. Really cool topic, so we look forward to asking him a little bit about. So, Scott, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. I didn't know I was going to have to respond to emails, but
Well,
great.
We may or may not get questions from the audience, but it does happen. And we'll ask you, if we get something coming in.
I could reach out for help, right?
And I want to say, you can lifeline if you need one. It's great to have you. And I just want to mention, because Chris went through all the amazing things you've done in your career, but part of what we'll talk about is your teaching. But I just want to say thank you again. Scott has invited me to speak in his class, and amazing group of students in there who are really well prepared, ask really great questions, and I really enjoy that opportunity every once in a while to get back in the classroom, because I miss it, with what I do. But I'm so grateful that they have you to kind of lead them through these concepts of what is leadership, what is org leadership, And how do you think about that, both on a local scale and a global scale, which you've been a part of? So thank you for all that work.
Well, it was great having you, and you spoke on a great topic, leaders in power. And as you said, you like dictatorial power.
That's exactly what I said. To quote me exactly.
No, you didn't say that. It was good. Actually, students mentioned you in the reviews of the course, but you've
That's
also
great.
come and spoken in some of the classes.
Yeah,
So
it is really fun to make those connections.
It's great that the Lewis leadership is willing to do that and support out, and it's it's a fun area to teach in too.
Yeah. So I want to back up a little bit and then go to what you're teaching. So my impression I have is that you had a whole career before going into academia, getting your PhD, and so on. So could you just tell us a little bit about that? And it also sounds very international, which I think is interesting too.
Yeah. So it started. I did exchange programs as an undergraduate and then a graduate student. And then there was a program like the Peace Corps for MBA students, MBA Enterprise Corps. Huh. And that took me back over to Europe. So I studied in Belgium, but then I went back and they sent 90 of us to Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and Poland. And while there, I met my future wife and co-founded a financial management accounting software company, which then took us I went from Czech to Russia to Singapore, where my son was born, then to Barcelona, where my daughter was born, and then we moved back to the United States. And then after that, I transitioned, went back for another degree, Master's in Medical Informatics, and started working at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Huh. And that was really interesting because that was like the IBM of healthcare, very always wearing suit and ties.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it was very enjoyable, but I was non-clinician. And when you're not a clinician in a hospital, you don't quite have as much influence. And I started going for a PhD in organizational leadership with my colleague Sheila Boyson, and that led to coming here at Lewis.
Well, and what I'd love to maybe, because we'll get into all sorts of other things, but if I could just follow up with, Scott, how that kind of experience plays into your teaching. Because one of the things that we're very proud of at Lewis is we have terminally degreed people all over this campus. That's kind of who we hire. But we have a lot of people who, like you, ended up with their terminal degree but didn't kind of start there. And so they have this real experience,
practical, hands-on,
in the world, doing the stuff that then they're teaching later. And some of them, we have people that did it both ways, but I think you're more like the majority of people, which means they had a career, might have been in healthcare, it might have been in leadership, it might have been in aviation, might have been as a police commander, and then they went and got their degree because they said, I love this and I want to be able to teach it. Or I want to, be able to do some different things, maybe write on it, et cetera. So could you talk about the way in which maybe that first 20 years of your professional life influences the way you approach teaching?
It's interesting because I did exchange programs when I was younger as an undergrad and graduate student. There was always the interest in making connections with other cultures. And I think it's just kind of a curiosity to learn about something different. And with my career, I've worked and traveled to over 60 different countries. And I'm always trying to make a connection. Whichever country I go through, you want to make a connection with the people. Food's a great way to connect. If you can get invited to the locals' houses and see how they live and what they do. And I try to bring that same thing into the classroom. So my household is a dual language household. My wife speaks Czech to the kids. They only speak Czech to her, and I speak English. And it's amazing they grow up differently than what I grew up. And in our classes, it's the same thing with the students. Each student is bringing something different, their own culture, their own perspective, and trying to make a connection with them. Because as you both of you have seen when you come to class, I learn something new in the class all the time. I can take an experience or something, share that, and then a student will build upon that. And it's like, wow, that's fascinating. I haven't thought that before. And one of the great things about having adult students is they have those real world experiences to share. And it's a leveraging of the knowledge that gets exchanged in the classroom.
That's great.
So some of our, we're here to talk about the TEDx. We'll get to that eventually, but we're not yet. We're not there yet. And some of the members of our community may know, I'm not even sure if you know, that Scott has been hired to be our co-director of our Rome program, starting next year. And did you
With
go
Ellen Thursby? Yeah.
along with Dr. Ellen Thursby from the social work department?
Yep.
So congratulations.
Thank you. Looking
So
forward to that. Yeah.
How does your experience translate? You just gave some great advice about how to do it, but I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit more about, and this will be with undergraduate students with whom you have less experience with.
Yes, I've
probably.
only taught in the master's program. I have
Yeah.
taught 1 or 2 undergraduate classes, but mostly
Yeah.
in the master. It's interesting. I'm meeting with Ellen and Chris Swanson after this to talk, kind of strategize more, and a lot of it is trying to figure out what is the atmosphere, the community that we want to develop when we're over in Rome, and how can we do that with the subjects that we teach. How can we emphasize the Lasallian experience with the idea of, I think going overseas, your knowledge of different cultures grows, but your wisdom, I think, increases more so, because your wisdom is kind of accumulation of knowledge and experience that you can look back upon, and you're wiser afterwards. And sometimes that wisdom comes with some bumps and knocks, which usually happens when you go overseas. And I think Ellen and I, we're talking about how she's focused on social justice. I think that I'm looking at how to live a better life, the values. Maybe we can bring some co-teaching in there, some of the courses.
So, and I just want to say, all three of us have had the benefit of studying abroad as well as teaching abroad. And I'm just grateful that you're willing to do it. I didn't know about this. And I think, I guess just we're always trying to plug multiple things because there's so many layers to everybody's life here. So students are already over there, and I think you and Ellen are going over, maybe over spring break or not, to
Ellen went already, and then I'm going to be there the month of March. I'm
Okay.
taking a 1-week intensive Italian class for
Yes.
1
Cool.
week.
Great.
It's trying to stay at a house there, and then I'll be shadowing and learning from the professors
Yes.
out there now.
Yeah, and so, and then maybe just because again, we would be remiss if we didn't. So I think we have more than 20 students over there right now, but and we don't have to get into details, but people can and should start thinking about this now.
Definitely.
Correct.
Yep.
Talking with
So that
families.
and talking to their advisor, talking to Chris Swanson, they can call you or
Yep,
Ellen,
definitely.
email,
Yep.
text, whatever, and say, boy, I heard about that, or my friend is over there right now. How do I get to go to Rome? And you're available for that. Ellen's
Yeah.
available for that. Chris is available for that. We all want more students to take advantage of Luce.
And not only how they can do it, but why they would. I think Ellen and I both would want to talk about how can this,
Yeah.
lead into your career path, whatever
Yeah.
that may be.
Yeah.
Great.
Because I do think it enhances one's career.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So let me ask about organizational leadership a little bit more. So
Great
I'm not
department.
sure. Well, one more question about how did you connect that with the career you had? Like, why did you choose that topic among the ones you had available to you?
Well, I've been in organizations. I started organizations. I was on the board of organizations. And what makes an organization successful really comes down to the leadership, as I'm sure both of you know. And so that was an area that I thought you had the biggest impact. I mean, you could, and not to disparage any of my colleagues in marketing, sales, finance, or the creative, they're all wonderful. But it was just an area of interest that I thought was broad and can be very impactful. So that was kind of what drove me.
All of these classes are classes that I would like to take. As I was reading them.
Finance
off.
for non-financial managers?
Yeah, I feel like I think I took that class by accident.
Exactly.
20 years of experience.
Maybe you're thrown into it.
It might have been a little faster if I had taken it.
Exactly.
But ethics, I guess let me ask about psychology of motivation. What can you?
That's a great class. And I actually think you guys might have come to that a few years ago, because one of those classes, at classes, we take a look at what is the fit between your career interest, your leadership style, your personality, and the organizational culture and style. And we also take a look at how do you deal with stress, what stresses you out, what are some options, and that was been great. I go for massages and flotation tanks the students do research on.
That's great.
And it's a great class trying to say, how do you stay motivated in the workforce? How do leaders motivate and engage their employees?
That's so interesting. We have a visit today and tomorrow from the American Council on Education group who is helping us think through the development of the next phase of our Lewis Experience offerings. And that's really one of the things that's currently great about Lewis, but also might be more clear and explicit in the future, is this helping students think through developing a meaningful professional life, having thinking about your spirituality, your really understanding yourself and what makes you happy, and connecting that to a career, so that as you finish a Lewis
kind of a calling,
yeah, exactly.
Vocation.
So that really sounds connected to that.
Yeah. Keith Levine did a book on vocation.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So I think it's
We're
okay
ready.
now to talk about TEDx. So
Yes, I think that'd be
you're
great.
here to promote Lewis TEDx, which I think this is the third year. We'll be doing a taping on our campus, and I think it's on March 2nd.
9 o'clock.
9 a.m. And so maybe we'll just start with, tell us a little bit about, I think most of our listeners probably are familiar with what a TEDx talk is, but maybe you could talk a little bit about, how we started doing it here and why.
Well, TEDx is the kind of grassroots, community-driven TED Talks. So you have the large kind of parent organization that does a large formal TED Talks that can have thousands of people. And the idea was to bring it out into the community. And the whole idea behind TED Talks is ideas that inspire. You want to be a catalyst for thinking and change. So it's community-driven. And it came to Lewis about 3 years ago, as you were saying, really through Dr. Sheila Boyson in the organizational leadership department. She was scheduled to give a TED Talk, and then it was canceled. And then we were looking at how could bring the TED experience to the Lewis community. So it's a very scripted. We have to be very scripted in the talks in terms of not the ideas, but they cannot be over 18 minutes. They have to be idea-driven, something that will inspire people. And this is the third year, and we've got a really great set of individuals speaking this year. It's mostly Lewis community focused. People would have
connection.
Lewis, connection. But you can't have a single topic. So you can't have a topic for one type of talk. It's got to be
a whole series about healthcare or about education or something like that.
Right.
Okay.
So
So how do you? I mean, you said this several times, and I just want to kind of do that thing where you kind of try to go a little bit further down the rabbit hole on this. So, what does it mean for you as you either were on the panel that reviewed the potential TED Talks, or as you've been talking to people as they've worked through and developed their talk? What does it mean to be something that inspires? Like, I mean, I think we all hear that word a lot.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Right? What is it? But what is, and maybe there's some specific language that TEDx uses, but, how do we think about that? Like, because I think this is a fundamental human question. You talked about, the kind of underlying psychology that continues to motivate somebody in their work. Inspiration feels like it's a part of that, but I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about what makes a talk inspirational as opposed to a lecture,
teaches you how to do something,
whatever.
Right.
By the way, I told you he would ask you a question.
Well, you didn't put it that way, but you did set me up a little.
I totally warned you about this moment.
So no, but it's a great question, and I'll draw upon from some of the things that we teach when we talk about organizational change.
Yeah.
If you look at organizational change, you have the rational side to that, and let's say the rational side is a lecture, where you present the facts that you are giving information about why the change is necessary, etc. We're informing the people. That's a lecture. And organizations, sometimes leadership, not you guys, but leadership will lecture to people why this change is important. A TED Talk gets to inspiration. Inspiration is that which touches the emotion.
Right.
When you talk about organizational change, a lot of time people think, it's got to come from the mind. Well, no, change is driven from the heart. It's done from the emotions. If you want to drive an organizational change, maybe 60 to 70% has to be emotional. The rest, you can present the logic, but to inspire people to move, to want to get involved, it's an emotional connection.
Well, that's so interesting. And so is it accurate to say that maybe with some types of lectures, you want the audience to feel a certain way or learn a certain thing or do your goal is to get them to a place, whereas with a TED Talk, it's to get them questioning or thinking their own thoughts or.
Yeah, it's a kind of engage in a so when you're teaching, you have times when you want to transmit information to them. You have times when you want to hear back from the students to see how they've processed it, and that's kind of the lecture side. The TED Talk and the inspiration is, have I connected with you? That's where one of the things that when we're doing with the speakers, you have to take a look at what their topic is. Does it seem like there's going to be some type of connection, and not just intellectual, but emotional also? And you want to see if there is a passion behind the talker. So we ask, there's a whole process speakers have to go through with an application, and then we see a video, and are they passionate about it? Is there a connection there? So.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Can I take this water?
You
course.
can.
It's
You
fresh,
can,
right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to just maybe ask about some of the speakers that you just mentioned. So they haven't given the talks yet, but you've seen them through the process of application and preparation. So what are we can't talk about them all, but we looked at all their names.
Yeah, they're their names up there. And so we have 2 professors. I'm just taking a look. 2 professors. We have a current student, Eric, former or alum, Marissa, and then somebody's connected with the broader Lewis community, Kay Bolden. And there's some really great topics there. So you've got, I think Kay Bolden is talking about aging adventurously. Christy is talking about bearing witness. And then Marissa's talking about first generation changing America. Annie's doing Play-Doh and play.
Yeah, she told us about that last week. Yeah, I forgot about that, but that's really cool.
So, and Eric is going through talking about some change and when good enough is not enough.
Oh, that sounds great.
It's great topics. It's really good topics.
So let's talk a little bit about, we can get back to, but I just want to make sure we get to, so people can attend in person?
Yes, but there is a size limit. You can only have up to 100 people in the audience at the time. So get your tickets now.
And you have to register.
Get a ticket.
Right. And you can go on to the website to get the ticket at the Philip Lynch website to get the tickets.
Right.
Okay,
so I'm going to, and just again, for people in our audience potentially, so Philip Lynch, on the Lewis campus.
Yep.
The theater.
March
go
2nd,
online.
9 o'clock in the morning.
March 2nd. And then, you talked about how tight it has to be. Can you talk a little bit about kind of why that is, why there's so much rehearsal, why it has to be so tight, and what the kind of theory behind that is for TEDx and how we participate in that?
Right. So the TEDx process, while we have control over the speakers in terms of selecting them, it is a very scripted process where we can only have a limit of 100 people in the building. All the videos, the recordings made, then it's sent off to TED and they take a look and improve it. And when it's approved, it's put up on the website.
Okay.
So there is a tight degree, there's no bloopers they want.
Right.
Actually, John, you should do a blooper reel of these 2 guys. That would get more people.
There'd be plenty of them.
But, they want, the idea is if you're going to inspire, you can't sputter through your talk. You've got to be able to make a connection.
Right.
And it's very important that it is rehearsed because it's very time limited. You can be short as 5 minutes, but it can't go more than 18 minutes. And you want to keep the flow. You want to keep it going and focus on what are the core ideas that the speaker is talking about.
What it reminds me of, and Chris, I'd love to hear if you have any comments on this because it's more in your area of research and study, but it so reminds me of form. How form allows for creativity, right? So if it's a sonnet is a sonnet, a TEDx is a TEDx. It has this, you can only do it within this space. It's like a haiku, it's like a whatever. But that also makes for greater creativity because I know what my limitations are. I don't know if, but can you speak to that?
No, I have exactly, I was going to ask the same question.
Yeah.
I think it's a really great analogy. That's how I've always thought of it, is that it, and the audience, in this case, because we all are trained in watching them on YouTube or whatever, knows the limitations.
Yeah.
We know, maybe even unconsciously, that it's not going to be very long. You know, we don't know
Yep.
18 minutes, but
Yep.
we know it's
Yep.
basically 10 to 15 minutes, and we know that they can't have a podium. We know
Yep.
that, you know, there's all these markers, and it's fun to watch someone improvise within those constraints.
You know, so interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but fun fact: I did my dissertation on innovation and organization and creativity, and people are much more creative if you put boundaries on it.
Right.
If you give them a blank sheet of paper and say do something creative, it's difficult. But if you put, I hadn't thought about that as we were saying. You can't have the podium. You can't do this. By putting limits, you force more creativity. That's interesting. Yeah.
Often, you know, I like, you know, sandbox. I use these, you know, metaphors of sandbox and curbs, and because I do think as leaders, the value in is in creating that, and I think TEDx has done that. They've said, and so many, you know, again, I don't know why sonnet became a sonnet. You probably know that. I don't know why haiku
And my favorite
became a haiku,
analogy
but
here is jazz, because we think of it as being incredibly improvisational, which it is, but it's built on these like really
Structured.
clear structures,
Yeah.
and it shows you how creative you can be within structure.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so here's a deeper question even. Why does a university, how does a university connect to TEDx? Either one of you can answer that. Like the way we've been talking about it as a community centerpiece. It brings together members of our internal community, but also brings together connections within Lewis.
I'll let you take the first stab at it. I have a couple
Yeah, I'll
thoughts.
let you get your thoughts together. Just throw them. So no, I think that's a great question, and I think it kind of gets to what a university does. It is where a place where the community can come together, explore curiosity, hear different opinions, and kind of have some type of personal growth.
Yeah.
And hopefully also make some relationships and connections.
Yeah.
You know, the hope is after this TED Talk that maybe somebody from the audience will sign up to do it next year. Maybe there'll be a connection with Christy Billups when she talks about hers. And I'm not going to give the secret, but maybe getting involved in what she's looking at doing. And I think that's it's engaging the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just add to that because I agree 100%. But you know, when we think about just numbers, I mean, what I love about the group that you have that's in this is students, you know, employees, faculty, and then people that are connected. Kay Bolden is deeply connected. I know Kay well. Family, her mother worked here, you know, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What I love about that is, so we're, you know, if you think about the Lewis community, about 45,000 alumni, right? 7,500 or so people that are connected to us today as either a student or an employee, right? So now we're in the 50,000. If you were to then add all their parents, their siblings, you know, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people. But just sticking with that 55,000, you've engaged really all of those parts, right?
Yeah.
Current students, employees, alumni, friends of the university that now are connected to Lewis. And in a way, what's great about TEDx, as you said, it has to go back to kind of corporate, so to speak, get approved, but it's going to end up available not just that day, but for years and years, where people then kind of get a sense of what Lewis is. And I want to go back to your question, Chris, like what is it, what's its role within a university? I mean, it's an opportunity for us to, for lack of a better word, brag about who we are, how we think about ourselves, how we think about the world. And I think the creativity of this comes out of being a part of this community. So when I think about somebody like Christy, she could have done this on her own, what she's inspired by, and we all know Christy and kind of know a little bit about her story. I'll look forward to hearing her, but I have a sense of some of the things that might be in there. But what I would say is Christy brings herself from outside, but then by being a part of this community of 40,000 people, and you know, she's been here for a long time, so she's interacted with lots of students. You said earlier today, Scott, you learn from your students. You're not just the person up front giving them information, you're learning from them. And I think, so now we have Annie and we have Christy and we have Kay, whose mom worked here for decades, and she got a sense of what Lewis is about, and our students, and they're giving back by kind of integrating their experience of what Lewis is with their own experience, and then putting it into this inspiring talk. And I think that is something that universities can do for the world,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're a community of people who are interested and interesting, we're curious about the world, and then we are creatives. I mean, I think all of us are creatives that can pull this together and give it back.
Yeah. It's the unlimited renewable resource,
It is.
creativity. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, but I think that's worth reinforcing, because I think sometimes we talk about universities as places where you go and learn stuff. Like, I'm going to go learn what it takes to be a nurse or what it takes to be a
Right.
historian. And, you know, I think I really love the way you talked about this around being about just what you just said, but increasing creativity, or, you know, letting creativity blossom and be inspired. And that has both, that's both how we should talk about like critical thinking and creativity in our basic orientation toward learning, but also it makes it a community impact, because
Right.
you're
Right.
spreading it beyond the borders of the institution or the university. So I think it's really amazing.
It is. Yeah, it's great.
Well, we're almost out of time.
We are.
So thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a
Yeah.
huge pleasure.
Any last comments you want to make, either about the event itself, something we didn't ask you that you really thought you wanted to say?
I see the teleprompter. If someone wants to be part of Lewis TEDx next year, how do they do it? And I get the emails from people. So we do have a link on the website, and generally that link will be open. I'm not sure if it's open now, but we'll start going through the process again in August, September of next
Right.
year. And we try to make the selection probably October, because there's a lot of work from the time we select the people to.
Yeah.
So could you talk a little bit more about that? So because, you know, most of us who do any writing or, you know, creating, it takes a while. So it's due sometime August, September, my initial thing. And
Yes.
what is due? Is it an idea? Is it a
So you have to,
videotape?
we have
a,
we have a form that you have to fill out.
Okay.
And so it goes through progressive, more involved. So there's a form you fill out on the Lewis website. Then there is going to be a tape, a video. Then the committee is going to review it, and we have a rubric that we take a look at and do assessments. And then you're going to work with the committee for kind of honing down. There'll be a dry run through. We had one last week or the week before. We have one tomorrow. And then it's just refinement, feedback.
But by like August, September, I would have to have a paragraph. I mean, like how much of my idea has to be done when I first submit?
Well, your idea needs to be pretty well thought out.
Okay.
Not your speech,
Right.
but you know what.
But the inspiring idea.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Why? You know, how
Why
did you come
me?
up with it? What do you think it's going to connect with the audience? What's your personal connection with it?
Got it. Okay. That's great.
And did you tell me earlier that people can volunteer on the day to do some other things?
No, they
want-
can't. So the audience, there's no. The audience cannot ask questions because it's scripted.
Right.
But we are looking for in between the speakers.
Oh, I see.
In between the speakers, if somebody wanted. Now, this would not be broadcast or tape, but if somebody wanted to do a poetry reading or something like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
just as people are
Yeah,
shifting.
but it's
okay.
in between. Just
Yeah.
a short transition.
Well, somebody might want to do
Want to play a harmonica or something?
magic.
Yeah. Entertain the audience.
Don't go there. You and I were just at a magic show
I know,
together.
I was a
Why
joke
did
for
you
him.
do that?
Okay,
Oh
all
my
right, all right, we're done.
All right, we're done with totally. We cannot
You
go
gotta
there.
have a
We
blooper
cannot,
reel
we
for these.
cannot go
Unraveled.
there. Oh my God. All right. Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Scott, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here.
And
to
we'll see
our-
you next year, hopefully, with the international program, right? Ellen and I.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, in person. my
I'm
turn.
always tempted to go over there. I actually have to be in Rome next summer for our student program, student leadership program. But I would love to go over maybe during
would be
spring
great.
break. I usually
Spring
go down
break would be
south
great.
here, but spring break would be great next year. Anyway, to all of our audience, again, I want to just say again how much we are thinking about people at Michigan State and around the world who have been impacted by so many tragedies, but also want to say as we close up today, you can tell by the excitement of our conversation that there is just such a inspiring group of people here at Lewis University. And we hope you enjoyed the show today. We wish you many blessings to you and all those that you love, and have a great week.